Clemson basketball drops a heartbreaker in triple overtime to Georgia Tech, snapping a 6-game winning streak in an absolute grind in Littlejohn Coliseum. What went wrong? What does it mean going forward? Meanwhile, the ACC still has some drama in the realignment issue with Clemson and Florida State having lawsuits that are still in play, and the conference now floating around revenue sharing. We'll talk about that and if it's a true solution for Clemson or maybe just a temporary Band-Aid. And then I don't know if you've been keeping up with recruiting, but I saw that there is a new crystal ball out for a commitment or a possible commitment in the upcoming recruiting class. We'll talk about all that. That's coming up right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Welcome in to Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast covering everything you want to know about Clemson athletics. And today I've got a little bit of basketball, a little bit of conference realignment, a little bit of recruiting for football. So I hope you're excited about the show. I waited to do the show until this morning, and mainly because of the late night basketball game, the 9 o'clock Tuesday night basketball game, which honestly, looking back, was not a good idea. I lost a lot of sleep. And I didn't go to bed till very late. And I didn't even make it to the full game because I'm old and didn't even make the full 3 overtime game. Wake up in the morning and the game was lost. So I made it as far as I could, but we'll talk about it. Hopefully you are a smarter fan than me and just maybe went to bed, or maybe even smarter and we're actually there hoping to bring in a win for the Tigers. But hopefully, things will change as things go on, but we'll talk about the basketball game as we continue with the show. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit the like and follow button and subscribe over on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as you see on the lineup there, the 3 overtime heartbreaker, brutal loss. We're going to talk about that, ACC realignment, and then recruiting battle that is heating up. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so segment 1 is the triple overtime loss to Georgia Tech. And honestly, I don't know how upset to really feel about it because Georgia Tech is becoming a better team as the season goes on. And if you look at their schedule, they could very easily win out the rest of their schedule. Clemson has a difficult stretch coming up because they have the Tobacco Road teams in Duke this weekend and then North Carolina on Monday after the Super Bowl. So those 2 games will be tough for sure. And we will cover those as well. Do I think Clemson has a chance to kind of rebound? It's 50-50 right now, the way basketball is. And I mentioned in a previous show, I really haven't done this very long, but you've already probably heard me say that one of Clemson's biggest concerns for me when it comes to basketball is when they get cold and when they start fouling out. And, we saw that last night. So we'll talk about that. They took a gut punch loss last night, triple overtime, Georgia Tech falling 89-86 in what was a late night battle. Shocking in Littlejohn Coliseum because you would think that there would be a little bit of an edge there, but injuries, missed opportunities, foul out, all played a part in the loss there, and kind of a deja vu because, if you remember last year, Georgia Tech also gave Clemson a late night home loss, and Nathan George came in. He torched Clemson he averaged 11 points a game, torched Clemson for 28, and had a couple of really just tough shots. Ian Shefflin did great as always. He does. Chase Hunter tried his best, kept the Tigers alive late in the game, but just could not get it going. Chauncey Wiggins continued with his streak of scoring good, and so he had 15. But to me, what were the main reasons why Clemson could not hang here? Well, when you go out and listen to Brad Brownell, the first thing obviously was rebounding. Just terrible amount of out rebounding. Clemson's rebound struggles allowed 24 offensive rebounds to Georgia Tech. And, you really, it kind of like, I don't think that's really the main problem, because that to me is just a symptom of what happened with Victor Lockett. Clemson doesn't really have a big man backup behind Ian Shefflin and Victor Lockett. They have Reeves, but what is he really doing? I mean, I don't know how much he really contributes. He didn't play a ton. And when he was out there, sometimes I question whether or not he even wants to be out there. It doesn't seem like he has any kind of fire. And, he's just another one of those big men that aren't comfortable back to the basket. I don't understand it. Locken kind of started out this season and he's gotten better with that. But a lot of times when Clemson goes down low, unless it's, even when it's Ian Shefflin, a lot of times it's just a throw up against the backboard. So it's not the prettiest post game that Clemson has this season, but they've worked through it and they have guys that can contribute even when that's not working. But Clemson has had some pretty, I would say some pretty crazy shots. I think a lot of Shefflin's down low shots that he makes are just, his body's in a completely awkward position. He knows how to kind of post up and use his body to bounce off of you and push you backwards. But then when he goes to the finish, I'm shocked at a lot of times how these shots go down. So to me, not pretty post game for Clemson, but it's been working so far. But it doesn't work when you really foul out like 15, 16 minutes into the game and Victor Locken's not there. So you don't have, you're playing small at that point. Well, guess what happens when you play small? Well, when you play small, your rebounding suffers tremendously. And then Dale Jones obviously was a huge spark in the previous game and was out with an ankle injury, so he didn't get any kind of time. And they really used Dylan Hunter a ton, but again, it really didn't seem to do too much. Now, most of the game, though, I did feel like it was kind of a toss-up. I didn't feel like Clemson was dominating much at all. I think it was just kind of back and forth, and it just kind of turned out to be what it is. Now, I'll say this. Clemson, even though they couldn't make the shots last night, their three-point shooting is pretty good. Some of the best in the nation. The overtime losses seem to be kind of a concern. They're 1-3 right now overall in overtime losses. So we'll see what happens. I wouldn't hit the panic button. They're still going to be a team that's one of the best in the ACC. And they may have a tough weekend or extended weekend with Monday. But I don't want, my biggest concern would be to make this one loss into 2, 3, 4, because then you do have Florida State, as we mentioned. I think they could probably beat them. But then they have SMU. So whereas statistically you probably should beat the Tar Heels and Florida State, now there's a risk there. There's a risk of, was Georgia Tech a look forward? Was that a trap game that was a look forward to Duke and they just missed it? And now they're having to make it up against Duke, and that's going to be a very difficult game with a lot of hype, a lot of fans there. And then if they lose that game, that's 2 in a row. Then they have to try to figure it out against North Carolina, which is not always an easy team to beat. And then they have to turn around and then let's say they have 3 in the worst case scenario, then Florida State becomes a struggle. Then SMU is obviously a difficult out as well. So it can snowball quickly. So that's the thing that I think Brad Brownell is going to have to make sure to cut and protect as the end of the season starts to wind down. They have to shake this off. Duke's coming into town, 6 p.m., Blue Devils, ESPN, Dickie V is in. So it's going to be huge hype around that game. Tiger fans, let me know in the comments what you're thinking. I appreciate everybody getting in the comments so far. I know that I've seen a lot of people from my old show on there. So big shout out to everybody, John Sarian and guys that are in there. Big shout out to everyone from my friend over there from Ainer and Ned's Burgers. Shout out for getting in the comments. And please get in the comments. Let me know what you think about the Clemson basketball game last night. And honestly, this is one of the things I don't like about podcasting, because when you make a decision to stay up late and then record in the morning, now I have to do this really quickly and then go to work. So it is what it is. Coming up next, I'm going to dive into the ACC realignment and why the conference new plan might or might not be enough for Clemson heading forward. Hey, looking to get tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a big headache. With Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. Now, I've used Gametime Picks for a while now, and I actually like how easy the app is to use. And there's an all-in, which, Clemson fans, you got to love an all-in button. There's an all-in button that you can click, and it'll tell you exactly what the price is. So that's pretty awesome. You don't have to worry about what it could or could not be after you get into the shopping cart. So, and the best part is you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Hey, maybe they're Clemson fans with the 110%. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's get into segment number 2, ACC realignment, revenue sharing, and Clemson's future. ACC realignment, ESPN seems to be locking in a new deal and through 2036, and the ACC is trying to keep the biggest brands happy. And those biggest brands, well, who can they be? Well, they're Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina. Well, those are the big ones that are going to get, I believe, a larger share of the TV revenue. And you're asking me, well, what's the goal of this? Well, the goal, I think, is to close the financial gap between the SEC and the Big Ten. As you know, right now, Clemson's kind of, just one of everybody else in the ACC. And that's not basically fair because when you look at it, their contract's not as good as the other conferences. And so those teams are going to make much more money in the SEC and Big Ten, even though they're not as good teams or not as good of brands. And so that's not going to be good long-term for Clemson. Now, a lot of Clemson fans on the radio said, Morgan, it's not going to be a big deal. A couple mil here, a couple mil there. Well, let me tell you something. Give me a couple of mil a couple of years over. All right. Give me a couple of mil a few years down the road. And guess what? I've got a lead that you cannot overcome now. You cannot catch up to me. And so that is the big risk here. Now, how is this new realignment thing going to work? It seems that they're going to make this brand fund that's going to be created with extra money for schools that generate higher TV ratings, ticket sales, and have better postseason success. So all of those things you kind of want because Clemson has better TV ratings, cha-ching. Clemson has better ticket sales, cha-ching. And Clemson has better postseason success. All three win-win-win for Clemson. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people believe that Florida State would obviously benefit. They haven't been as well in the postseason right now, but they have, and the ticket sales maybe not so, but the TV ratings definitely. Miami, North Carolina for sure. But you notice I didn't really say Duke. I didn't really say North Carolina State, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Pitt. So there's a lot of teams, Georgia Tech. There's a lot of teams that could be missing out on this. And so that's one of the biggest concerns that I have about this is, man, it's great for a Clemson fan. I'm orange here. I'm orange in my vein. But for the other teams in the rest of the conference, it is a big concern because when you have unequal revenue sharing, you are admitting on paper these teams are better than you and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Competition aside, that's about the only way you can beat them. Even if you beat them, they're probably still going to make more money than you in the loss. And this caused a lot of problems in the past for conferences that like Big 12, and so when you play favorites, think about when the Big 12 played favorites with Texas, right? Texas, Oklahoma. Now, what's the Big 12? They have a lot of the teams that jump ship because of Texas, Oklahoma. And then now Texas, Oklahoma jumped ship for them. So I don't know if it's a good long-term thing because history tells us, maybe not. Even with the extra money out there, sometimes money is not enough because of that perception and that idea that, hey, you're less than because, you're not these other schools. And guess what? You never will be. So what about, I didn't even mention, what about Louisville and I mentioned Virginia Tech, North Carolina State. What happens if they get frustrated? Now, no, as a Clemson fan, with those being our rivals, I don't care if they get frustrated or not, but they could. Over time, it could start to hurt them, and they're going to start to be less competitive. So, to me, they've got. I think it is a Band-Aid for the top schools. I don't think it's a good thing for the conference overall. I do feel like that it's weird for me because I've told you my position on this. I don't think that Clemson would do well just jumping ship to the SEC. I think there's a saturated Southeastern market there. Clemson is wedged in between Georgia and South Carolina. And I don't know how that would really affect recruiting. I think it would be a change in dynamic. You could use SEC as a big bonus for sure in the games you would play. So maybe I'm overreacting on that, but to me, the SEC may not even want Clemson right now. They have already Georgia just an hour away and South Carolina just about an hour and a half away. So maybe they don't even want, because they already have that market. Now everybody says, well, Clemson has this huge brand, Morgan. How could you dare say that? Yeah, they do have a huge brand, a national brand. I get that. But maybe the SEC doesn't see it that way. I'm not sure. Now, the Big Ten could possibly see it that way because they don't have really a presence in the South. And so maybe they could move that way. But the ACC is trying that with going to the West Coast. And so I just don't know. You would still be, instead of being the top dog that is in these conversations to get all the money, you would be just another team in those conferences. I think that you wouldn't want to jump ship. Me personally, and maybe I'm wrong, get in the comments, let me know. I wouldn't want to jump ship from conferences until there was a super conference where it wasn't just the SEC or the Big Ten. I think I would like to be a part of a super conference where you possibly have a buy-in to be part of that conference. And if you suck in that conference, then you get kicked out of that conference. And if you're a really good team that's not in that conference, then you get added in, much like what they do in European soccer leagues. So that's what I would prefer. If you were to move forward with this, that would be my thought. So let me know what you think in the comments on this. And don't forget to follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show. Is this a smart move by the ACC, or is this just a Band-Aid that's delaying the inevitable? I think I know what you're going to tell me in the comments, but I'm just curious. Oh, by the way, before we go into segment number 3 and we go into our next break, I did a post over on X, The Morgan T Show, about my previous show with the running backs. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of fans out there that are really excited about the running back group. And I get it. I'm not saying I'm not excited about the newbies, but I think we need to take a step back and realize that they are newbies. So if you're not following me over there, if you're not talking to me over there, what are you doing? Come on, follow me at The Morgan T Show. Coming up next, we're going to finish the show out with talking a little bit of recruiting as Clemson is battling Ohio State and Georgia for an offensive lineman. You gotta love it if you're a Clemson fan. All right. Now, I haven't done much of recruiting, and honestly, I've kind of been a little bit checked out in recruiting just because it's to a situation where everybody's getting paid now. So, even the newbies are getting paid. Even the high schoolers who come into the school are getting paid. And now Dabo Swinney is fully involved in it, even in the transfer portal and recruiting. And so do I really feel like these players really care about coming to Clemson or not? I would say, for the one, honestly, let me take a step back. For the ones that are coming to Clemson, I actually do think that they pretty much care about coming to Clemson. I think that's the whole thing about Dabo Swinney and his recruiting process. He does not want to waste time on people who really don't want to be there. And so I think it's an anomaly for Clemson. So if you're a recruit out there and you're listening to this, I think as a fan, my perspective, and someone who covers the team for 6 years now, I think that Clemson definitely takes their time to pick the guys that really want to be there. So when you're there, you're surrounded by guys that are not just making money. They are making money, but they're not just doing it for that, and they're not just looking for the next best bag out there. So I think that Clemson's still doing it the right way. They're still slow playing a lot of guys. They're still trying to make sure that they're the right fit, and they want to be there on the opposite side too. So let's talk about it. Clemson is getting into the trenches with Ohio State and Georgia Tech. and might be close to landing a 4-star offensive tackle, Adam Guthrie. I have it up there on today's show. A crystal ball out there over on 24/7 Sports, Alan Trio and Corey Fravel, our friend over there at Clemson 24/7 Sports. They have brought the crystal ball out. So this guy, who is he? 6'7", class of 2026, 285-pound offensive tackle from Ohio, ranked 15th offensive tackle, 169th overall prospect. He's got big time offers from Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Michigan, Southern Cal, Florida State. Why is this big for Clemson? Well, it's big for Clemson because Matt Luke's going out there and doing the work. You want to see your big time offensive line coach go out there and win these battles. Clemson has struggled to do so, especially against Notre Dame, Ohio State. And they got Blake Miller a couple of years ago, but they kind of be in a little bit of a lull in landing a big time guy from another state. And so maybe this could be the other Ohio guy that comes down and is a big success for Clemson right out the gate and is a freshman starter, or maybe even in the rotation as a freshman. And why is this possible against Ohio State? You're probably thinking, man, Ohio State just destroyed it in the national championship game. And Georgia, obviously, they're a multi-time national champion, so they're the SEC and blah, blah, blah. But Ohio State is considered still a favorite, I think. But their offensive line coach, Justin Fry, he just left for the Arizona Cardinals. So that kind of opens up a little bit of the door for Matt Luke to get in and take maybe take the lead, take some charge there to land him. Now, crystal ball is a good predictor. I think those guys that put it out there, they are typically some trusted guys. So maybe they have some insider info that we don't know about. So I'm kind of excited to hear what they may have. Clemson obviously needs help in the offensive line. I told you this in the previous shows. I think that Matt Luke is doing a great job, but the talent, man, that's the big thing I worry about in 2025. You have the players you have. When a player shows you who they are, believe them, right? And these guys aren't just going to just become 30% better after you've seen them 3 years. And Clemson's going to have a solid offensive line. They're going to be a good, solid, well-coached offensive line. But they're the same pretty much as they were last year. So they're really not losing anybody. They're replacing one guy, left guard, right? But other than that, they're going to be pretty much the same. And I'd be interested to see what happens when we inject new talent onto this roster, because I do think there's a little bit of a ceiling here for the Clemson offensive line. Maybe I'm being too critical. Maybe that's a challenge for the offensive line in 2025 to prove Morgan Thomas wrong and let me know that I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think this guy is really good. I watched a couple of his film. If you haven't, over on Huddle, Adam Guthrie, obviously he just pushes guys around. I think he would pair well with the guy they have right now, and bringing in some massive guys, big time guys. This guy's 6'7". The Wilms is 6'8" and 280 pounds. So I think, man, if you keep bringing in big, massive dudes for the offensive line, I think it's going to do anything but be great for Clemson. So hopefully Clemson can land them. What I'm seeing on some of these articles out there is that he is lined up or has said that he would come to the elite retreat, which is now in March. Usually it's at the end of February or January. We would have already talked about the elite retreat, but now it's moved up. And so possibly if he visits then, maybe Clemson locks him down then. So I'll be looking out for a podcast in March, hopefully, where we can get a not just a crystal ball, but a commitment. So that's what I'm hoping for. Let me know what you think. Do you like this guy? When you go look at his huddle first, look at him just destroy guys in high school. Let me know if you love him. If you want him to be a Clemson Tiger, put it in the comments. And don't forget to follow me again over on X at The Morgan T Show. Hey, that's it for the show. It's a quick one. I know I got to get to work. So thank you so much for being a part of the show today and making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go over to Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono, Kenton Gibbs, keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite team is in the ACC and within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.